Suburban voters. They're the group we're watching on this story, and we'll keep watching them. And they're also one of the groups we're all watching as reporters amid the racial reckoning in this country. The latest front this week is also a key political battleground, Wisconsin. Both President Trump and Vice President Biden visited there this week. President Trump had a searing law and order message.
Violent mobs demolished or damaged at least 25 businesses, burned down public buildings, and threw bricks at police officers. These are not acts of peaceful protest, but really domestic terror.
Vice President Biden met with the family of Jacob Blake, a black man shot by a white police officer last month in Kenosha.
If I get elected president, I promise you, there will be a National Commission on Policing out of the White House, where I'll bring everyone to the table.
Nikole, was Wisconsin this week a microcosm of the campaign and where this nation is on race?
Well, I think it certainly is a microcosm of the campaign. I don't know if it is where the nation currently stands. I mean, I think to me what struck most searingly is that this really is, as we pointed out, even with the military story, you know, a tale of two campaigns, a tale of two different candidates. And so I think the president has been very clear that he is going to continue with this law and order message. And Biden, on the other hand, of course, is trying to paint himself as the more empathetic figure, as someone who is a uniter, not a divider. So we saw in his visit, you know, him sitting down with members of the community and hearing some of the pain that many in the African-American community feel versus the president, who took more of the approach of sitting down with law enforcement. And certainly we need to bring all of those communities together. And so in the context of this visit this week, you know, I think you saw echoes of that too with the conventions. You know, with the Republican National Convention, we did not even hear the president mention Jacob Blake's name, whereas during the Democratic National Convention, we saw members of the Floyd family speak at that convention. And so again, you're just seeing these two different approaches. You know, as far as the president is concerned, while certainly the law and order message may resonate with his base, I think many within the African-American community want to see more empathy from this president and really see him address the elephant in the room, which is systemic racism, which underlies this more broader problem, as opposed to simply painting protesters as agitators, as looters, when the bulk of these protests have been peaceful. And certainly the president and the White House have acknowledged that, but really haven't gotten under the hood of the car to talk more specifically about those issues of race. It didn't even really come up during the convention. And so that is not lost on many African-American voters. That being said, we certainly know many in the Trump campaign feel that they will do well with black voters. And, you know, they think the president has a record that speaks to that. You know, Biden, on the other hand, I think really wants to target members of the African-American community. Certainly that is a key part of his coalition that he and currently he leads with that demographic, and certainly one that he feels will be instrumental, I think, to his campaign going forward.
Arlette, can you jump in on that? George Packer wrote a story for The Atlantic this week about how Biden could possibly lose if he doesn't have a forceful enough message on law and order. How are they trying to balance the appeal to white voters in the suburbs who may like that law and order message with Biden's own calls for racial reform and reconciliation?
Well, I think the Biden campaign was feeling a lot of pressure to have him more forcefully speak out against some of the violence that was seen in the protest after the president and his allies last week spent the week trying to paint Biden as soft in crime and suggest that Americans wouldn't be safe under President Trump's America. Biden, instead, at the start of the week, I was there in Pittsburgh when he delivered a fiery speech, and he tried to turn the tables right back on President Trump, saying that these images that have played out in some protests across the country, that's happening under President Trump's watch. And he's also trying to bring in the larger picture of safety in America when it comes to the coronavirus pandemic, when it comes to foreign policy. He believes that the president has failed on those issues. And so right now, what you've seen from Biden, you know, at the start of the week, he denounced the violence on all sides. He condemned rioting and looting and setting things on fire, saying that that's not part of protesting. enforcing, that is lawlessness. But then you also see him reaching out to that community that is now grappling with that police shooting, talking about those issues of racial justice. This is something that we saw Biden do also after the death of George Floyd.
Arlette.
Biden went down to Houston, met privately with the family. He held a listening session back in Delaware, trying to hear concerns from community leaders, African American leaders, and that's something he did again yesterday in Kenosha. I was there. You could still see, right before Biden arrived, there were several dozen protesters who showed up outside the church, still very frustrated with the racial injustice that they have seen occur in this case, and they want to see more action from the former vice president. So you're seeing him kind of skirting this line where he has denounced the violence that has occurred, but then also trying to speak to those issues of racial justice that so many people are concerned about.
And Peter, what does this all mean for the state of play in Wisconsin, a state President Trump won by just 22,000 votes in 2016? Is this all about revving up his turnout in the mostly white Milwaukee suburbs?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it, obviously. It is a critical state. The president wants desperately to hold on to it. If he manages to hold on to even one of those Midwestern states and then doesn't lose in, say, Florida and Arizona, he has a much better shot at holding on to the Electoral College majority that he had from last time, even if he doesn't win the popular vote. So, yeah, Wisconsin's a key part of that. And I was talking today with somebody who went out with him to Kenosha this week. I wasn't on the trip, but they said he was charged up by the reception he got. He felt like he was welcomed there, that people were glad to see him there, that they were lined up on the streets, and to the extent that there were protests, people who didn't want him there, people who thought it was wrong for him to come or he would inflame the situation, he didn't see that. And so I think what you are seeing is a president out there who wants to get back out on the campaign trail. I was with him last night in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Wants to have these big rallies, gets a charge out of it. His schedule tells the tale. He's going to North Carolina once this week, once next week, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. I think you'll see him, obviously, elsewhere in the Midwest and probably in Florida and Arizona as well. So it's a president who understands that he has some making up to do in the polls, but feels confident that this law and order issue is a way to get traction, even if the polls haven't yet shown that it's working for him.
Nikole, we have about 30 seconds left. You've also done some reporting on the political map. Which states are you looking at in terms of where the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign are focused?
Well, I think it's important to go back to those three critical states back in 2016, which made the difference for President Trump, which is Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Now, again, I think the Trump campaign doesn't necessarily feel that it has to win all three of those again, that it can still succeed and surpass 270 without all three. But hands down, to me, those are the three states to watch. We are seeing the Trump campaign increasingly spend more time in Pennsylvania, which to me says out of the three, that's certainly one of the ones they're focusing on the most.
Arlette, would you add anything to that when you open your own notebook?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are going to be huge. Biden, making his first real campaign visit outside of the Delaware, Pennsylvania area there yesterday, also due to this moment that the state is in right now due to Jacob Blake. But I think that those states, I think Arizona and Florida are something that the Biden campaign are also hoping to bring over to their corner.